Okay, now let's see if that works. Alright, well, welcome everyone. It's time for another streaming. Let's start with some images from Hungary with ducks and all that sort of crazy things. And I think that this will be fine. So now, if you are watching this as a video, this part is always insanely interesting. I know that. Because right now you don't know what you're watching. And you aren't seeing anything. So that's not useful, you'd say. But mark my words. In these live streams that you can rewatch later, I answer questions and, well, that's all. If I don't have any questions, then, well, I'm afraid I have to talk about something else that I'm doing lately. Something I really have only a little idea about what's up. So, right now, oh, there are some people. So, hello everyone, it's nice to see you. We are coming along nicely. And you can still watch some random pictures from Hungary. Now, please note that this live stream and these setup that I have is improving. And it's a work in progress, mostly. So, I'm not going to tell you to not expect anything or not expect lot, but it's going to be improved, hopefully, throughout the months or decades or even hundreds of years that I'm planning streaming every Wednesday. So, since there is a new setup, there is always a new setup, let's take a look at it because it's fun. So here, now this seems a lot more complicated than the last time, but I think it's pretty obvious what my goal here is, which is not clear to me, so if you can tell me what my goal is, then I'll be happy, really happy to do. I've got two cameras actually, for fun. I mean, I've got this one, as you can see, my hand, finger pointing at the moo at the moment. But there is a fun fact for you here. It says Budapest has 14 bridges. Now, as a start, while you're trying to set yourself up, put yourself in the mood, let me switch to something different, and then I can show you, after I actually modified the font, that the way this sentence looks like in Hungarian, because it's a random sentence and we are here to do random things. As long as there is no question towards me, I'm going to pretend that I asked questions from myself, which is kind of a schizophrenic thing to do. But anyways, so I can see a question forming there, I believe. So I'm going to wait for that one, but remaining on target for the time being. And then let me write down the English sentence. There you go, and let's try to make some Hungarian sentence out of it. It's fairly easy, I would say. So, first of all, it starts with Budapest, I believe, because that's the smart thing to do. Unfortunately, Hungarian works with attachments. So, whatever we do in Hungarian, we achieve that with attachments, which is awesome, but also a bit confusing, because, for instance, in the Hungarian language, there is no to have. So, it's a very interesting way that we circumvent this problem, and that requires a lot of hacks when it comes to the language. Let me show you why. Because we need an attachment, this one, it's to that person or to that noun in this case. When you are writing a letter and you say, like, I'm sending it to Tom, that's the attachment for it. This is what you use. Then there comes the stuff, and another attachment, and then what you need to do for fun is that to put the to be in there. Now, this is just some light Hungarian for advanced students, I guess, just to wait until there are questions. And I've got another one. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say names, but clearly it shows here. So Henry, I don't think that you finished your question, or if you did, I don't understand what you wish to do. Okay, I think that we've got one. So let's go in order. Let's do Henry stuff, and then I can speak some Hungarian very slowly, and you can try to decipher it. So in the word almalé, the L sounds like an I just hearing it wrong, or does it sound like a, okay, yeah, right. So there is the word for apple juice. There you go. It's fun. So the way we pronounce it, let me put some space between the syllables. So 3 of them. One is all, then the other one is ma, and lé. It's an A, like in the word great in English. So in this case, it would be all, ma, lé. It's pretty cool. However, when you pronounce it fast, then it's a bit hard, because for most people, especially people who speak English, the mouth itself and the tongue and all the, you know, the speaking organs, they are not accustomed to actually pronounce things. You have the sounds, but not in the right order. It's a strange order that you have probably not experienced. And even if you speak any sort of Slavic language, or whoever surrounds us, or Russian or Chinese or something, it might be a little bit strange, because the sounds are in different orders in general. So the way Hungarian sounds is that we put very similar sounds right after each other, but the truth is that we have our own style of what comes after another to form words that sound Hungarian. and to form sentences and like whole speeches that sound generally Hungarian. And I'm pretty sure that you've experienced this. Something sounds generally Russian or English or German or, well, in this case, Hungarian. So, one last time. Almalé, but faster. Almalé. Now, speaking slowly in Hungarian. This is for those who understand a little bit of Hungarian, but this comes with a price. Because for those who speak Hungarian, I ask you a favor, that you try to type it down, whether in the comment section later, or here in the chat, or whenever, but preferably in the comments. That would be an interesting part there, to try to guess what I'm talking about. So that is the price of me talking Hungarian. So, since there is no topic, I will come up with something which will be, surprisingly, connected to the bridges of Budapest. Here it goes. Budapestnek 14 hídja van. 2 híd a vasút számára van, a többi autóknak készült. A leghíresebb a Lánchíd, amit Széchenyi István épített. Széchenyi egy nemes és gazdag ember volt, aki szeretett volna egy hidat építeni. És ez lett a Lánchíd. Budapest 2 részből áll. Az egyik rész, a keleti rész, Pest, a nyugati Buda. Tehát a keleti rész itt Pest, a nyugati Buda. A Lánchíd ezt a 2 részt köti össze. A híd nagyon szép, este, amikor sötét van, és ki van világítva. All right, this is the end. I hope you enjoyed it thoroughly. And just to recap what I talked about, but I'm pretty sure that based on the pictures, you might have a basic understanding of what was going on. I talked about one of the bridges of Budapest, the chain bridge made by this guy, Széchenyi, and it connects the 2 parts of Budapest, east and west. Pest is in the east and Buda is on the west. and it's very, very pretty when it's at night. And I know it's pretty hard to write this fast, but well, that's why I try to suggest that maybe later, when this video is uploaded to YouTube, it would be easier to write it down. And but let's recap what was going on. And so my question is, how well could anyone understand me? Because I was trying to speak very, very slowly, but what happens is that I can't really slow and differentiate between the syllables. This is what happens when people in English try to speak slowly. It's very hard for a native to do that, because to be honest, for me these sounds and connected to each other, these sounds are very, very basically way too familiar. And since they are familiar, I just don't know how to sound like that. It could be easier for people who are not Hungarians. This is especially true when I speak normally, because if you think about it, there are sentences that we have told other people a million times already since birth. So unfortunately, for people who wish to learn the language, it's very hard to use television or any sort of stuff, video or audio material, because people tend to use sentences that are very common. So there we go. Now, right. Well, like I said, as a disclaimer, might not be very, very good speaking slowly. However, actually, I've been teaching some Hungarian for some years now, so hopefully I have a little bit of practice when it comes to speaking slowly. Still, anyways, thank you for the compliment. It's very nice of you. So, I hope that it was somewhat satisfying to hear me speak Hungarian very slowly. But if you have any other challenge, I'm always here to take on them when it's connected to Hungarian or the Hungarian language. I don't think I would jump off a cliff, unless for a certain amount of money, mostly probably above $1 billion. So yeah. So I guess I always speak slowly. Probably you mean if I understand it correctly in videos, which I guess I try to do that because I wish to be understood by anyone that watches videos, and for some reason I noticed that lots of people are not from the US exclusively, and hopefully that helps for people to understand me. Unfortunately, there is no way to speed up live footage, but when it comes to the right, hang on, sorry, I just got a message kind of offline. So anyways, that was not specifically connected to this stream. So I think under one of my videos someone suggested that there is a feature on YouTube to make things a little bit faster, so you can hear me twice as fast if you wish. So thank you for... Soon I will take that as worshipping, so I'm a little bit close to world domination. I know that it depends on whether enough people like me, so probably above 1 million, or no, sorry, probably about 1 billion people, that would be enough for world domination. I mean, that would be the biggest army in history. But I digress, because we are supposed to talk about stuff that is Hungarian. So, I think I've run out of questions, yet I'm supposed to talk, because otherwise this video would be boring. And while I could definitely say moo indeed, as cows would have this perfectly well thought through opinion, we need to move on and try something else. So, oh yeah, well, that's a very quickly surprisingly that was a very surprising question. So what made me start the thing? That was probably one of the most boring things in the history of mankind, because I used to do other video and film related stuff connected to like shooting wedding videos and music videos and whatnot. And the thing is that one day I realized that I was bored and I wanted to create something quick. So I made the first couple of videos for Learn Hungarian, because I thought that after zero research that maybe the world would be better off with more Hungarian videos. I didn't even know if people made other videos, which is always a two-edged sword. On one hand, it's good not to do research, especially when it comes to art, because you always get discouraged. Because if there are like 5,000 other videos, you'd think to yourself, why would I do that? But the other thing, on the other hand, if you do make the research, sometimes it turns out that you really don't need to spend time on some things. So naturally I did not do that and ended up with a couple of thousands of views on YouTube, because I guess I got lucky. So hence, here we are with some people watching, which I'm eternally grateful, because I thought that nobody would be interested in such things. So crazy. So Learn Hungarian, let's see. So if you learn Hungarian for 1.5 years, and well, that makes me ask a couple of questions usually when someone comes to me to learn Hungarian. And then I remember one student of mine in particular, that after a year of studying, he asked me why he is not advancing in English. So that was a Hungarian student. I mean, trying to learn English. So he asked me like why, and I looked at his sheet displaying all the hours that he spent on Hungarian, and I realized that throughout the year he spent about 20 hours on English. So that was not nearly enough to actually do something. So I guess my question after this insanely interesting story is that, well, how much how much have you invested in the language, and what sources did you use? And please note that Hungarian is the type of language that you would get quite good at after about maybe 3 years, because it's a very difficult type of language. But still, while you're answering the question that I just asked, like how many hours did you invest weekly or monthly in the language itself, that would determine lots of stuff. And so I'm supposed to pronounce Pintér Béla. I wonder if he's famous. Pintér Béla. I guess, but unfortunately I think that I'm not very well educated when it comes to Hungarian films, which is a shame, because then I would be able to talk about him extensively while people ask more and more questions. But I guess I have to stop here because, well, that's all. But I hope that you're satisfied with my pronunciation of this one particular name. And maybe this is the guy you're looking for, or maybe not. Maybe it's a friend of yours. So, who am I to think of stuff? A singer. Wow, okay, so definitely not an actor. But here, oh yeah. Crazy stuff. Alright, now that we know that there is this person, I might even listen to some of his things for fun. There is another question from Harry. What's the Meg? Alright. So here is a sentence, a quite interesting sentence, out of context. Now, tied is the possessive for you, yours, actually. So this sentence would translate to this is yours. Unfortunately, the Meg part gets lost in translation. But I can talk about it, as I have the ability to talk about lots of stuff when it comes to Hungarian. So in this case, Meg, as it is often used instead of és or any sort of connecting word, this means that when you are pointing at stuff, literally like things, you can say like, oh, this is yours, and this is yours. And then you say the Meg. I hope that's clear, or at least almost clear. But let me recap and just try to explain it so I would understand what I was trying to say. That you're pointing at things, you're naming them. This is yours, this is Peter's, this is whoever's. And then you arrive to something, and after saying that that's yours, you're going to say as Meg a tied, as opposed to all the other things in the room. So there are stuff that are yours, and there are stuff that are mines, and right. So the difference between meg and és. Well, the thing is that using meg instead of és is very similar, like is very similar to using I have to go or I have got to go in English. Now if you think about it, because we all speak English here on some level, this one is not very good, because this is supposed to talk about possessions, yet we use it for other stuff. This is the exact case of meg, that we use it as the equivalent of és, and, but we're not supposed to. However, I learned in school that when it comes to, for instance, numbers, we should use this when we add numbers. So we end up with sentences like egy, meg egy, az, kettő. I can write it down. Egy, meg egy, az, kettő, meaning 1 plus 1 is 2. We don't even use the equals, I mean the word equal. So, an answer. I was going to school twice a week and I was learning every day 1 hour. I suppose that isn't enough. Do you have any advice? Well, taking that much time out of your life to learn Hungarian is already awesome. And I would never ever suggest to put more and more hours into it, because ultimately you have a life. It always depends on your goal. So I guess my other question is that regarding this, like many hours, is that what is your ultimate goal? And you might not even have to answer that, because let's say that your goal is to, I don't know, to do something with Hungarian extensively throughout the day. Then, as it gets closer, well, you might have to increase the number of hours as the stress level increases. However, if it's far away, you're perfectly fine on track. What actually you can do is that instead of increasing the hours of direct studying, after 1.5 years, I'm pretty sure that you understand some things, or even a lot of things. Just not enough for TV, because TV is a bit more complicated. When we learn languages, it's often thought as a process similar to growing up. So first you talk about very simple things and you understand simple things, then you go on and on about with this practice, and then in the end you're able to talk about, discuss and fight about regarding politics, for instance, or emotions. Emotions are the hardest, of course, because when you are stressed or angry, that's when you actually wish to have the best skills in that language, because otherwise you would decrease so much because of the stress. Anyway, so becoming a Hungarian citizen is something that can be done in numerous ways, but of course ideally it would be that either you have a lot of money. In that case, I like you very much, let's be friends. or you have Hungarian ancestry. Now, unfortunately, depending on the country that you live in, it's quite bad if you come from the eastern side of Europe or the eastern part of the world, because I have experience with citizens from Brazil or people from Brazil or the US getting citizenships in an extremely easy way. So that doesn't require a lot of Hungarian knowledge, and some of the people just don't learn Hungarian ever. So if you wish to become a citizen and not just pass the test, but actually try to learn Hungarian for the sake of living here or stuff like that, then going back to my original story about the hours and stuff, what you can do is you should try to find stuff with subtitles. That's again kind of like a weird stuff, because you can find Hungarian dubbed movies in places. I can even show you some ways to get hold of them. But when you found these movies, you can watch them with English subtitles or your countries, like your language subtitles. So the trick is that you should always have some sort of help or aid when it comes to listening to stuff. And the most important reason, among other things, is that instead of increasing the actively learning hours, you should increase the passive learning hours, which you might or might not do already. It means that instead of watching stuff in English or whichever way to wish to watch things, you should just substitute that with Hungarian. And I guess I say that because of my experience when it comes to English, because I did the same kind of reversed, that at some point in my life, after learning English on a kind of deeper level, I just started to watch thousands of hours of movies with English subtitles, so in English with Hungarian subtitles. So I wasn't very dedicated, you could say, because it wasn't even English subtitles. But I understood the movies, and I learned the rhythm of the speech, and I learned all sorts of crazy stuff passively. And after a while, after some years, unfortunately, unfortunately for you, because it means that for me it was like 5 years. I noticed that I didn't even need the subtitles anymore. I just got used to the language. So listening to audio files, audio books for instance, is always a good idea. Unfortunately, that's another way of actively learning. So it's cool, and some people love actually learning this way, that you have a dictionary and a book, for instance, or an audio book, and then you stop it and look for the words and whatnot. I have always been way lazier than that. So instead of actively trying to do something, in my very lazy way, I just try to slowly introduce it as part of my life from then on. And of course my brain didn't have any other options but to somehow learn the thing. So maybe that is one advice, because obviously there are a million active ways of learning, and I'm not sure what you have been doing with your hours, but I'm pretty sure that it's perfectly fine. I can't imagine people who are actively trying to learn a language doing bad stuff, because ultimately everything is good as long as you try to uh, do stuff in that language. So I guess that would be it, unless you have another question a bit more specific or a follow-up question. And until then, let me answer this question, that are Hungarians religious people? And that is always an interesting subject, very dangerous though, because I have had the chance to talk to a lot of people from America, I mean from the US, for example, and I noticed that the way religion, especially Catholicism or Christianity, is portrayed and practiced in the US is very, very different than it is practiced in Hungary. In Hungary, it is part of the culture, Christianity. We and we are pretty closed. We are a pretty closed society. So it's not that we hate other people who do not do the same religious stuff, but for instance, we have Christmas Day, Christmas Day and the second day of Christmas off, but we don't have Hanukkah. And technically, I think you could operate when it comes to work according to your religion, but it would be very hard because nobody cares if you are in the office or in the mine or in the supermarket, especially when the supermarket is closed, on these our religious holidays. So I guess that that is one half of the answer, and the other half is that as an example, I have a colleague at the office that I work who is actually really, really sort of hardcore Christian. And the way I think he is the perfect example when it comes to religious people in Hungary. He's one of the most peaceful and helpful people that I know. Simply because these kind of teachings that Christianity has regarding not being violent and all that sort of stuff, Hungarians seem to, I mean proper religious Hungarians seem to take into consideration and take it as an important thing or important things or rules. So those who are not idiots, very sorry, but I feel very strongly about people who pretend that they are religious, because that's probably a very bad thing to do, at least in my world. So if you are a pretend religious person, then yes, I'm pretty sure that Hungarians, as a Hungarian, you can brag about going to the church and doing all the nice stuff for people and donating to charity and whatnot, simply to feel pride, which is one of the 7 deadly sins. So yeah, it's and one of the things that deeply religious Hungarians do, especially in the countryside, is that they do not try to impose their views on you. I mean, sometimes they take note of religious stuff, but it's never connected to you. So it's never a sentence like, well, if you were Christian, this would not have happened to you, or God is punishing you because you have a different religion than I do. It's not something like that. These kind of people, religious people, Hungarians, these were the people who actually helped the refugees when they crossed the border some time ago. There was a big scandal about this in Hungary, or Hungary was in the news that Authorities didn't really have a good understanding on how to deal with these people, but Hungarians, I mean normal people, they had a pretty simple thought that if these people came here and they needed help, then they needed food and sheets and whatever, because they come from a very warm country, and here in Hungary winter is a pretty big deal. So yep. So oh no. Okay. So I'm pretty sure that I've never tried this because I'm not in a need of learning Hungarian. And like I said before in the beginning of this stream, I'm not the type of, not in the beginning, in the middle, when I was asked about how I started all the things, I'm not the type of person who would do extensive research regarding other things learning Hungarian, but thank you for the suggestion, and I'm pretty sure that this stuff is cool. So you can try it, you can even connect it with your Facebook and then have a go. So I usually say that I'm doing my part of trying to help people learning Hungarian, and I'm always glad that other people or other groups like this Hungarian Pod 101 do stuff, regardless of how many people are trying to teach the language or whatever. Because in my view, if I'm alone, it means that I have to do all the work, and that's never good. I mean, when it comes to stuff, I don't know, being the best species on the planet or most successful, then yeah, it becomes an essential part in our society that we work together as a group. So that's cool. And yes, that is true. Just to change the subject for a bit, to some extent. But as I said before, just to return to it a little for a little while, this one can be an equivalent. This can be used as an equivalent of és. But if anyone's interested, I can tell you what stuff Meg, or what group Meg is part of. And some of you may know or may have experienced this, that you have, when it comes to learning Hungarian, you have to learn a specific group of words, even if you're Hungarian. So even I, who speaks Hungarian, apparently, had to learn this group, and it goes like this: be, ki, le, fel, meg, át, el, rá, ide, oda, szét, össze, vissza. Oh, I think that was a little bit... No. There we go. So, well, you're welcome, and goodbye. I hope you enjoyed it or found it somewhat useful, and be back later, next week maybe. So anyways, to those who still remain or watch the video later, this is the group of words that I talked about. This group is the equivalent of auxiliary verbs in English. So if you put that in front of a verb, and of course it's a prefix, so you have to attach it, then it not changes, but alters the meaning. So bemegy, that would be to go in. Kimegy would mean to go out. And I don't want to go in deep into this. If it ever becomes a question, I'm pretty sure that I think I'm able to answer this and explain this. But regarding Meg and L, especially Meg when it comes to verbs, it's kind of the equivalent of the present perfect in English. It means that something is finished. So I didn't just do it, or I don't just do it, I finish the action itself. So let's go with this. Néz, to look at or to watch. So nézem a filmet, that's pretty cool, because that means I am watching the movie or I watch the movie. But if I put the meg in front of it, it means that I don't just watch the movie, I completely finish it from beginning to end. So as you can see, because there is only a limited amount of 3-letter words, 2 or 3-letter words that you can have, unfortunately there is a lot of repetition going on. The same 3 letters mean different things in different parts of the grammar in Hungarian. So I guess that's the thing. Yep. So where did I stop? There are 8 minutes left of this hour, so we should use it very wisely. But even if you're watching the video and you have come this far, probably you have seen, like, heard a lot of information, so that's fine. And I'm slowly starting to run out of things I can talk about today. So what I can do is finish off, if there are no questions, finish off with some stuff regarding the country itself. Because even though Hungary traditionally has never been divided into East and West, like Germany, for instance, at some point of history, there is a great difference between the eastern part and the western part, and it's mostly connected to the surrounding countries. So if I zoom out a little bit and look at what surrounds the country of Hungary, is on the eastern side it's mostly Romania and the Ukraine, and on the western side it's mostly Austria and Slovenia. And Austria and Slovenia, but especially Austria, is way richer than Hungary. It's nicer, salaries are higher, the purchasing power is much greater. So it's only fair that if you live in these these counties of Hungary. Here. So if you live in these counties, maybe even this one, you can actually go to the west pretty easily, and assuming that you can cross the border, mostly because now we live in the European Union, but even before, people found a way to cross the border, or found different ways to cross the border. Not illegally per se, but you know, if the border patrol guys are your friends, then it's kind of easy. It's only natural that, of course, people do that. So if you do that, you can have much nicer stuff. You can sell your things there for a much higher price. But when it comes to the eastern part of Hungary, especially these counties, Békés, Hajdú-Bihar, Szabolcs-Szatmár-Bereg, they are connected to Romania and the Ukraine, and these countries don't really have a great amount of purchasing power. So you can't go there to have higher salaries. I mean, to receive higher salaries if you find a job there. And you can't sell your things there for much more money. And of course, the country, I mean, this division is gradual. So, of course, if you, I mean, it's kind of like a snowball. If people that live in these counties have more purchasing power, then probably they can spend some more money on the east, perhaps. And people who don't have purchasing powers, then, well. Anyway, so, just to recap this one, a class on those prefixes and suffixes and definitions. Sure, to be honest, as I said in the previous stream, I'm trying to bring up these Hungarian videos in different forms, or perhaps in a different form. So hopefully, either during one of these streaming videos or as a separate video, I can promise that there will be something regarding the prefixes. As I said before, when it comes to more advanced Hungarians, I could really use real-time feedback when it comes to things. So perhaps I will try to use a portion of this streaming thing, this hour, to do that. And the second one, as the last question for today, I think Elisabeth of Austria. Now, Elisabeth of Austria, I mean the Empress, I presume, who was the Queen of Hungary, but actually the Empress of the whole empire. And we always think of her in the most kindest way, because she was cool. There are two major players in history when it comes to Hungary, I mean Hungarian history. And one of them is her, it's a good guess. And the other is King Mátyás, who is often regarded as the king that was the most just or righteous among all. So I guess that we have run out of time, but well, since at least one person thinks it's a good idea and I'm the other person thinking it's a good idea, that makes the two of us. So there you go. I think it is decided that next week, if I do not forget it, well, I will write it down, then next week we'll talk about the prefixes in Hungarian, as well as always, answering questions in Hungarian. So, thank you very much for everyone who was kind enough to watch it. And let me just say goodbye with those pictures, because it's nice. And then I'd say see you next week, the same time, and hopefully it will be a much more interesting thing. Yeah, I ran out of thoughts. So, thank you, and I bid you farewell now. Have a good evening, and all that sort of stuff. Goodbye.